Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're taking a look at data quality. And to get us started, we've got an article by Samuel Williams. It features some great insights from data governance guru Rob Brennan, and we're really excited to break down some of the key takeaways with all of you.
It's a pretty dense article, but I think anyone who works with data will find something useful in it. I know I did.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, but I'm really curious about this idea of value-driven data quality management. It seems like a pretty big shift from how we traditionally think about data quality.
It is. It's kind of like flipping the script instead of trying to make all our data perfect, which, let's be honest, is pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
We focus on the data that actually matters most to the business.
So we're talking about prioritizing data quality based on how it actually impacts the bottom line.
Exactly. It's about understanding the downstream impact of your data. Like, how is it actually going to be used, and what are the consequences if it's not accurate or complete?
That makes a lot of sense. So for someone like a data engineer, this might mean really understanding the business context of their work.
Absolutely. Data engineers are often the ones building the pipelines, cleansing the data, setting up those validation rules. So they need to be able to connect the dots between their work and the bigger picture.
The article does mention some challenges, though. Things like scalability and figuring out how to actually assess the value of data. And of course, integrating this whole value-driven mindset into existing systems, which can be a beast.
Oh, those are definitely real concerns. But there are ways to tackle them. For scalability, automation is key. And I'm not just talking about automating data quality checks, although those are important too. I'm talking about automating the process of identifying and prioritizing data assets based on their value.
So this might involve things like machine learning algorithms that can analyze data usage patterns and predict downstream impact.
Right. And when it comes to assessing the value of data, there are specific methodologies and tools that can help. Things like data lineage tracking can provide insights into how data flows through an organization and where it's being used to make decisions.
So it's not just about the data itself, but also about understanding its journey and its ultimate destination.
Exactly. And as for integrating with existing systems, well, that's where things can get tricky. But having a clear roadmap and a phased approach is crucial. You might start by identifying the most critical data assets and gradually integrate value-driven data quality management into your workflows.
It's a journey, not a sprint. So we've talked about value-driven data quality management, but the article also dives into this idea of semantic data quality, which honestly sounds kind of intimidating.
I get it, it's a bit more abstract. But
No.
think of it this way. Semantic data quality is all about making sure that your data is actually meaningful and interpretable in the context of your business.
So it's not just about whether the data is accurate or complete. It's about whether it actually makes sense in the real world.
Exactly. The article gives a great example. Imagine having a database full of customer addresses. But the data isn't structured in a way that allows you to easily segment customers by region for a marketing campaign. The data might be accurate, but it's not very useful.
Ah, I see. So for a data engineer, this might mean thinking more like a knowledge architect, mapping out how information is structured and how it relates to the bigger picture.
Exactly. And this requires close collaboration with domain experts who really understand the nuances of the business and the data that drives it.
All right, so we've covered value-driven data quality and semantic data quality. What's next on our deep dive agenda?
Well, next up, we need to talk about trust. I mean, how can we be confident in our data-driven systems if we don't trust the data itself?
Right, and that trust comes from transparency and accountability, knowing how data is being used and who's responsible for what.
In Brennan, in the article, he recommends a framework called ACTESIV, which stands for Accountability and Transparency Evaluation Framework. It's designed specifically for ontology-based systems, and it basically provides a structured way to track how data is used and who is responsible for what.
So for a data engineer, this might mean thinking about how they can bake ACTEF principles into their data pipelines, like building in mechanisms for tracking data provenance and ensuring that data usage is auditable.
Exactly. It's about embedding these principles into the very fabric of how data is handled and processed.
And I imagine this becomes even more critical when you're dealing with sensitive data or when you need to comply with regulations like GDPR.
Oh, absolutely. Data engineers are increasingly finding themselves on the front lines of data privacy and security. Their work has legal and ethical implications, and frameworks like ACTEF can help ensure that they're doing things the right way.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already, from value-driven data quality to semantic data quality. And the importance of transparency and accountability, we're making good progress.
We are. And I think it's only going to get more interesting from here.
All right, well, stick with us as we continue our deep dive into data quality. Coming up, we'll explore how to actually put a dollar value on your data and how linked data can completely change the way we share and use information.
Welcome back to the show. So last time we were talking about how important transparency and accountability are when it comes to data quality.
Yeah, and we touched on this ACTF framework, but I'm curious how that actually plays out in the real world. Like, how would a data engineer actually use something like ACTF?
Well, think about it this way. Every time data is transformed or cleansed or aggregated, you need a way to track those changes and understand who made them and why. So that's where tools for data lineage tracking and metadata management become super important.
So a data engineer might need to start thinking about integrating those kinds of tools into their workflow.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine a scenario where a data analyst notices a weird discrepancy in a report. With good data lineage tracking, they can trace that discrepancy back to the exact transformation that caused it, understand the logic behind it, maybe even figure out who is responsible for implementing it. That kind of transparency is crucial for building trust in data.
And it makes sense that this kind of traceability would be really important for things like GDPR compliance, where you need to be able to demonstrate how personal data is being handled.
Absolutely. Data engineers are increasingly finding themselves on the front lines of data privacy and security. Their work has real legal and ethical implications. And tools like data lineage tracking can help ensure that they're staying on the right side of the law.
Okay, so ACTF definitely has real-world implications.
Yeah.
What about this idea of data value assessments? How do we actually go from theory to practice?
This is where things get really interesting because Brennan argues that we need to start thinking about data as an asset with a quantifiable value. Just like any other asset, data needs to be managed and protected and invested in.
But how do we actually put a dollar value on data? It seems kind of abstract.
It can be, but there are frameworks and methodologies that can help us. For instance, we can look at the cost of acquiring, storing, and processing data.
Right.
We can also look at the revenue that can be generated from data-driven products or services. And maybe most importantly, we need to think about the risks associated with bad data.
Like regulatory fines, reputational damage.
Exactly. Or even lost business opportunities. So a data engineer might need to start asking themselves questions like, okay, if this data pipeline fails, what's the potential fallout? Could it mess up our financial reporting? Could it hurt customer satisfaction? Could it lead to a compliance violation?
And by being able to quantify those risks, they can make a much stronger case for investing in data quality improvements.
Right. It's about connecting data quality to those business outcomes.
This actually makes me think about all those dashboards and data visualizations that data engineers often build. Are there ways to kind of incorporate data value metrics into those visualizations to really drive home the importance of data quality?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine a dashboard that not only shows things like accuracy and completeness, but also displays the estimated financial impact of those metrics. That's a super powerful way to get everyone on the same page and make data quality a shared priority.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
about making data quality tangible and relatable instead of some abstract technical concept.
Right. And it's about empowering data engineers to be more than just builders. They become guardians of data value, helping their organizations really unlock the full potential of their data.
Speaking of unlocking potential, the article touches on linked data as a way to enhance data sharing and integration. Can you expand on that a bit?
Linked data is a fascinating topic. It's all about making data more discoverable, accessible, and reusable by using standardized vocabularies and metadata.
So it's about making data more findable and understandable, even across different systems.
Exactly. The article gives the example of GeoHive. They're publishing Ireland's geospatial data as linked data, which is pretty cool in itself. But imagine being able to combine that with other data sets like demographics or economic data or even weather data. Suddenly you can start to see patterns and insights that were completely hidden before.
So for a data engineer, this might mean learning about new technologies and standards like RDF and SPARQL.
Yeah, and it might also involve collaborating more closely with data scientists and analysts who are skilled in working with linked data.
It feels like this could be a game changer for data integration. Instead of trying to force fit data from different sources into a single schema, you can use linked data principles to connect them in a more flexible and dynamic way.
Exactly. And it's not just about internal data integration either. Imagine a world where organizations can easily share and integrate data with each other, breaking down data silos and fostering collaboration. That's the real power of linked data.
Okay, so we've talked about how these big picture concepts like value-driven data quality and data value assessments and linked data can actually have very real implications for a data engineer. It's about changing the way they think about their work and the tools they use.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that data quality isn't just a technical issue, it's a business issue.
Yeah.
It's about creating value, managing risk, and making good decisions.
Before we jump into the listener questions in part 3, I think it would be helpful to acknowledge that putting all of this into practice isn't always easy. There are going to be challenges along the way.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, implementing these concepts in real-world settings often means dealing with complex organizational structures, legacy systems, and sometimes even just resistance to change.
So what are some of the common challenges that data engineers might face when they're trying to champion data quality within their organization? And how can they overcome those challenges?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is simply a lack of awareness or understanding. Many organizations still view data quality as an IT problem or a nice to have rather than a strategic imperative.
So how do you convince people that data quality is actually worth investing in?
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier with those data value assessments. By quantifying the potential impact of poor data quality, whether it's lost revenue, increased costs, or reputational damage, you can start to make a really compelling business case.
So a data engineer might need to become a bit of an evangelist, educating their colleagues and stakeholders about the importance of data quality.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about preaching. It's about demonstrating the value through real-world examples and success stories. Share case studies, show how data quality initiatives have led to better decision-making, increased efficiency, improved customer satisfaction.
Show, don't tell.
Right. And it's also important to celebrate wins and recognize the people who are championing data quality. Make it a cultural value, not just a technical requirement.
Okay, so lack of awareness is one hurdle. What else do data engineers often run into?
Another common challenge is the lack of clear data ownership and accountability. In a lot of organizations, data is scattered across different systems and departments with no single person or team responsible for its quality.
So it's everyone's problem and no one's problem at the same time.
Exactly. And that can lead to inconsistencies, errors, and just a general lack of trust in the data.
So how can data engineers help to fix that?
They can advocate for the establishment of clear data governance structures. This might involve defining data ownership roles, implementing data stewardship programs, creating a data dictionary or glossary that provides a shared understanding of key data concepts.
It's about bringing order to the chaos, creating a system where everyone knows who's responsible for what and how data should be managed.
Right. And data engineers with their deep understanding of data systems are in a great position to contribute to these efforts.
Okay, we've talked about lack of awareness, lack of clear ownership. Any other common challenges?
One more that I see a lot is resistance to change. People get comfortable with existing processes even if they're not ideal. And introducing new data quality standards and procedures can be disruptive. It can cause pushback.
So how do you manage that resistance and get people on board?
Communication and collaboration are key. Involve stakeholders early and often in the process. Listen to their concerns and address them proactively. Explain the benefits of the proposed changes and how they will actually make their work better.
So make sure people understand the why, not just the what.
Exactly. And provide adequate training and support. People are much more likely to embrace new processes if they feel confident in their ability to use them.
Makes sense. So navigating these organizational and cultural challenges is just as important as mastering the technical aspects of data quality.
It's all connected. It's a holistic endeavor. And by being aware of these challenges and having strategies to address them, data engineers can become real agents of change, driving data quality improvements and helping their organizations succeed in a data-driven world.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm sure our listeners are already thinking about how they can apply these concepts to their own work.
I hope so. And I'm excited to hear their questions in part 3, where we'll get even more specific and tackle some real-world scenarios.
Don't miss it. We'll be right back with the final part of our data quality deep dive. Welcome back to the show. It's time for part 3 of our deep dive into data quality. And we've got some great listener questions lined up, so let's jump right in.
Sounds good.
Okay, this first one comes from a data engineer at a startup. They're asking, with everything moving so fast, what's the most important thing I could do to make sure we have good data quality?
That's a good question. I think the key is to build a solid foundation from the very beginning. Don't wait until things get out of control.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, for a data engineer to start up, it means being really disciplined about data modeling and schema design. Think about using standardized vocabularies and ontologies right from the start.
It's like investing in a good pair of running shoes before you start training for a marathon.
Exactly. And just like with training, consistency is key. Make sure you have good data validation rules in place. and automate those data quality checks as much as possible.
Makes sense.
Oh.
Okay, here's another question. This one comes from a data analyst who's working on a project that involves integrating data from a bunch of different sources. They're wondering, what are some best practices for ensuring data consistency and accuracy when you're dealing with such a diverse data landscape?
Data integration. Always a fun challenge, but there are definitely some things you can do to make it easier. First, try to establish a common data model or ontology. That'll help ensure that data from different sources is interpreted and used consistently.
So it's like creating a Rosetta Stone for your data.
Exactly. And don't skimp on the data cleansing and transformation. Address inconsistencies and standardize data formats before you load anything into your target system.
Any tips for making that process less painful?
There are some great data quality tools out there that can help automate a lot of that stuff, both open source and commercial.
Oh, right. And don't forget about good old-fashioned communication.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Talk to the people who own and manage those source systems, understand the data, how it's collected, any quirks or biases. Building those relationships can save you so much time and frustration in the long run.
Okay, last question. This one comes from a business leader who wants to create a more data-driven culture within their organization. They're asking, how do I convince my team that data quality is actually worth investing in? How do I make it a priority?
I love this question because at the end of the day, data quality is a business issue. It's about achieving better outcomes. So the key is to connect data quality to those outcomes. Show your team how poor data quality can directly impact the bottom line, whether it's lost revenue, increased costs, or missed opportunities.
So tell a story. Paint a picture.
Exactly. Use real-world examples, case studies to illustrate the consequences of bad data and highlight the positive side too. Show how good data can lead to better decisions, increased efficiency, a competitive advantage.
And maybe even create some friendly competition.
Ooh, I like that. Set up some dashboards that track data quality metrics across different teams and departments. Recognize the folks who are doing a great job. It can be fun.
It's amazing how data quality can be a catalyst for cultural change.
It really is, and I think that's one of the coolest things about working in this field. Data quality isn't just about the technical stuff. It's about people and processes and ultimately making things better.
Well said. All right, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into data quality.
I feel like we just scratched the surface. But hopefully this conversation has given you a good starting point.
Definitely. If you're working with data in any capacity, you need to be thinking about data quality. And the good news is that there are tons of resources out there to help you on your journey.
Absolutely. Books, articles, online communities, conferences, you name it. There's a whole world of data quality knowledge waiting to be explored.
So keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with data.
And most importantly, have fun along the way. Data can be a powerful tool for good, so let's use it wisely.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this data quality deep dive.
It was a pleasure being here.
And until next time, keep diving deep.